So yeah, a few people asked me to make a grass tutorial, so I decided that's a good idea, and here we are. So for this example or tutorial, I will, select few references. This is a pure ref application, and I gather few images from Horizon, and I decided to make a grass kinda in this style, in this color. As you can see, I have 3 reference images, and as the quality is pretty low, I decided to gather a little bit more references with the higher quality, but probably a bit different color. So I, found this image. It's like 4K, and you can zoom in really close and see how the mesh is created. Yeah, I think that will help me a lot. So I decided to, use the shapes of those 2 reference images, and for the coloring style, I want to achieve something a bit more like that. So yeah, let's start. So I'm using a pure ref application, as you can see, and I start by adding a cylinder. I change some settings like number of vertices. I don't use any fill type, and I resize it to fit a bit more a blade I want to create. So this is a pretty standard procedure of creating one blade. I take a closer look at the reference. Yeah, so I reshape it a bit better to fit the image I have from Horizon. Yeah, I think it's the stage when I add subdivision to shape it a bit more, like taper the top and create like shape that is looking a bit more like a grass blade. And also I recommend tapering the bottom of the blade, grass blade, because it will look more natural, and blending with the ground will be a much easier task. And yeah, so now that I have that one blade, I decided to create 3 copies to have some variation on the scene, and just modify them a bit, one smaller but wider, and one much taller for this deformed one in the reference. Yeah, and basically what I am doing right now is just improving the shape. Like I just noticed that it's too thick, so I decided to make it thinner. Yeah. And when I decide the shape is quite okay, I add the subsurface subdivision modifier, and just correct those shapes, as this modifier is changing a bit look of it, and adding smooth shading, because when I bend the grass it will be really visible in the scene, and we don't want that. Yeah, so I need to fix all of the blades because of this modifier. So yeah, you can see me doing that on the screen right now. And when I decide that this is pretty decent, I need to create this visible edge. So basically what I did is I add another edge close to the center of the mesh, and just slightly move it in the x-axis or y-axis, just to create this visible icon seam. And yeah, checking from different angles is always a good idea to see if this small detail is really visible. And when I think it's ready, I add those another subdivisions that are needed to bend mesh better, so I can deform it. And yeah, I think that's looking right now at this stage pretty decent. So I move it aside and decided to work on UV. So this is really easy. What you did is project from view and map it to hold the UV space. So yeah, you can take the whole UV space, and that way the creating texture will be easier and probably much detailed. So I did it for all 3 of the meshes, and now we can move to shading. Yeah, so I created a material and added a color ramp connected to the base color, and you know, image coordinates or texture coordinates, UV, or separate XYZ and use Y. And as the test, I just, you know, move this gradient to see if everything is set up correctly. And now I just, you know, take my image reference and start to sample the colors. So, yeah, I'm getting most, you know, the farthest away colors and try to add another in between and just sample like that. And I like to add, you know, at least 4 points in the gradient and just manipulate it, you know, to see what it's looking the best. Just looking at my leaf blade. Yeah, and basically I did the same for the 3 other blades, and decided to scale it a little bit because it doesn't look like a blade on the reference at this stage for me. So I created a little bit also deformation, so make the grass blades a bit more interesting. Yeah, and so I renamed them because I forgot to do it at the beginning. So I moved the leaf blades away. I noticed that the scale is pretty off, so I decided to rescale all the blades so they, you know, keep much more real dimensions, real world dimensions. Like a 40 centimeters is a good value for the Hourglass, I think. And I started to deform the blades, so creating the patches, and I tried, you know, different shapes of modifier and stuff like that. But in the end, you know, you just use what is more convenient for you. Yeah, this is basically what you need to do now. So I will, you know, make it a bit faster on the video and just copy blade by blade, modify it a bit until you get some nice patches. So you can see, usually you don't want to make them really different. I mean, if you know, copy the same grass patch on the whole scene, you start to notice some differences and some strange shapes. So basically I tried to keep it, you know, pretty simple and organic, and this way I could reuse it in the whole scene. And yeah, this is the stage when I think that the first patch is almost done. Some, you know, more corrections, and I duplicated it, rotated it, scaled a bit, yeah, and, you know, do another improvements. I like to, you know, keep the grass plates close together, but do not create those empty spaces too much, because it will look a bit off and unrealistic. Also, do not make the texture, I mean, you know, this will be a texture in the future, so do not make this too thick. And basically you need to have like a good balance. I think that something like this is pretty good. Yeah, so now I'm just, you know, fixing the shapes and making the texture, I mean, no, the meshes that I want to be baked to the texture a bit more interesting. Yeah, and just looking for the shape, and I think is looking pretty decent. Yeah, at this stage I thought that it was too less, you know, density there, so I decided to copy part of it, and, like, you know, now I'm making a second patch, because one patch of grass is usually not enough, and just, you know, copying the parts from the original creation and just modifying it a bit will be usually enough. At least for this demo, I think this will be enough. So I decided to take a look how, you know, it's looking with the color, some final details now, and I think it's at this stage when it looks almost ready for baking. So I added the plane, and move it a little bit to the back, so you know the blades are only the front, scale it, and this is the place where I want my meshes on the texture. And yeah, I think I take a look at the reference and that's it. Yeah, so let's go to baking. So firstly you need to, you know, join those blades into single meshes, that way your baking will be a lot faster. Then just, you know, add a simple material to the mesh and add the image texture to baking plane material, and yeah, create new texture. So I usually use 2K, but you can, you know, downsample it. I will call it something like grass diffuse, or you can call it albedo, and remember to check alpha and click OK. Make sure this, you know, this node is selected. I go to the render tab and check if the transparency film is selected. And yeah, for the bake type, use a diffuse. And for the combination, I usually like to, you know, leave all them together, like direct, indirect, and color. You can use only color, but I think that, you know, this additional details in texture really improves the, you know, visuals, and because the grass is, you know, so you know, environmental assets in general are very dependent on the light and shading and stuff like that, so that's why I think this is really necessary to add. And of course you select to active and start this direction to 1 meter. I think this should be enough for this scene. Yeah, I think that's mostly it. Make sure this node is selected and click bake. And after you wait for a few minutes, you should be, you know, presented with the image of this type with the transparency. So save it like, you know, grass diffuse or albedo, and make sure this is RGBA, a bit should be enough, and save. And basically you need to repeat for the normal map, so add another image texture, rename it to something like grass normal map. Make sure this is okay, disable alpha, and yeah, select it. Change bake type to the normal, and don't change the options, click bake, and yeah, wait another few seconds and you should be presented with the image of the normal map. Save it again, and yeah, at this stage we can proceed to creating alpha cards. And yeah, so we have our high poly meshes. We can hide them, you know, in the group like high poly baking, and let's add a new plane, rotate it 90 degrees on the x-axis, and let's create a new material. Let's call it a grass card, and we can start importing our mesh images. So let's, you know, open our grass diffuse, connect color to color, alpha to alpha. Yeah, and like we need to change to the EV to see a better preview. Change alpha clip to see transparency correctly. Add our normal map, create non-color step, add a normal map node, connect it to color and color to normal map, and should be presented with this, you know, pretty decent looking card planes with the correct normal map. You know, you can change some of the parameters. Let's move to the bigger view. Let's, you know, create some subdivisions to eliminate transparency as much as we can. So yeah, I will take time and remove every part that is not needed, and then I just select the faces I want and separate them for this big plane, creating those two smaller meshes. And I move them you know, to the side, and decided to move them to the center so the origin is correct, and the same with the, you know, second texture. So now that we have two cards, I just decided to add the plane. You know, this will be our ground, and just placing those meshes and, you know, just rotating them and creating some, you know, shapes that look much more like grass clusters. So always start with this point when I create, you know, 3 or 4 shapes that I usually repeat on the scene. So yeah, this is like fast forward of this etap, and usually you should, you know, take your time at this step, because the whole assets appearance will be dependent on it, and decided to change the size of the ground so it fit my dimensions better. I use like meter and a half for this, so when I place them in the meter by meter distances, they overlap a bit and create better shapes. Yeah, I just added them. I like to create a little bit bigger shapes at the center and smaller, on the edges. And just take a look from the different angles and make some, correction, just, replacing, copying those 3 items you created at the beginning of this step. Just, take your time. And when I think I'm done, I just look, at the cards and decide which card is needed and which can be discarded or should be moved somewhere. Some of them are, repeating, so I just, optimize it at this stage and add some others. Yeah, and you can just, change the faces. So if you use a modifier, you can copy the normals from the grass plane and export it. So yeah, now we are in Godot, and as you can see, I prepared the scene. I added a plane called the ground. I added also this directional light and world environment. Only set up the skybox, and now I'm gonna add to create a GLB file in Blender, so you can see this is how it's looking. And yeah, so now we have our grass imported, make it editable, and we'll edit the material, because in Godot Alpha 4 there is some bug with mipmaps, so we need, our custom material. So just save this material. I just edited the one that was already with the mesh and saved it into other place, and I replaced those albedo and normal map textures. You can also tweak other parameters now if you want. Yeah, so this is how this is looking, and you can enable backlighting, so basically it will be color will be more even. I like to make it a bit more reddish on the backlight and enable ambient occlusion with light effect. And when you re-import again GLTF, you can set up it that way, and the material will be already placed by default. And yeah, so now we can change some settings, like enable screen space ambient occlusion in environment, changing power, and basically changing tone for something that you like ACs. And now I think we are ready to try with multi-meshes. So yeah, just make the editable children, add new mesh instance, multi-mesh instance, and click populate surface, select ground as a target surface. Source mesh will be our plane from our GLTF file. Yeah, and change other settings, and you have something like this. You probably exported it wrongly in the Blender, so let's go back there. Yeah, so now we're on Blender. Just apply a scale, position, rotation of your mesh, import in Godot, and you see something like that. So it's already looking pretty decent. If you want, you can edit multi-mesh settings, like for example, amount. So I will set it to 256, and this is the current result in Godot. Yeah, so now that we have our multi-mesh instance placed, let's add a material to our ground. I downloaded CC0 texture and set up the material. I added, albedo, normal map. I also tried with roughness. Yeah, and basically you might need to manipulate the color of the ground to fit your grass a bit better. So you can see me tweaking parameters like UV scale and stuff like that, just to look it better. I think I removed roughness in the end because it was too shiny for my liking. You could edit the texture. If you have some problems, you can go to the unshaded view and tweak the colors from there, go back to normal, and it should look a bit better. And when you do that, you can tweak further your colors until you have something that you really like. Enable ambient occlusion and add light effect, and you shed those shadows around the grass blades. And yeah, at this stage is like, you know, tweaking some settings. And when you are, you know, think you are ready, you just enable anti-aliasing. I like FXAA because I have higher resolution monitor. Yeah, and at this stage we can try to add an animation to the hourglass. So let's just, you know, duplicate or make this material a shader. Yeah, so this is the simple vertex function I created. You have two additional uniforms, and you can, you know, change those parameters to your liking. One is the ambient wind strength, and the other is bend strength. So, you know, it's bending the planes with the camera. And this is the bit improved version of this shader. Basically, what I did, I removed the ambient occlusion, then created a gradient from top to bottom of the mesh, and that way it's a bit less noisy. And yeah, I think that's mostly concludes this tutorial. So yeah, you can see the current fragment shader on the screen. In the end, this result is a bit different than the reference. I mean, like a lot, but you can tweak it further. Nevertheless, I think it's looking pretty decent. So yeah, I think that's all. If you have any questions or suggestions, just please leave a comment. And I hope to see you on the next video.